Traders, this is Christian from Semiconductor Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Monday, December 8th. Price action quite boring over the session, but we did have a real nice close. There was a buy and balance at the end of the day, which kind of made things look and feel a little bit better. I thought that there were some decent setups today too, which I'll review a little bit about that. Risk disclaimer in front of you: everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving you any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. So, main events for this week: we have a Fed meeting coming up on Wednesday. I thought today kind of made sense in terms of the price action. It felt like there was some selling. Looks like it felt like there was a decent seller in there all day, perhaps trimming a little bit into that event. Remember, folks would rather be a little bit lighter going into a big event that could have some direction for us for what we've got going on for this for the rest of the month. We are kind of getting towards the middle of the month, and if you have a chart of S&P seasonality, which I don't have in front of you, but if you have a chart of S&P seasonality, you know that the beginning of the month is decent, then the middle kind of trails off a little bit, and then the so-called Santa Claus rally kicks in on the 24th of the month. So that's the last 5 trading days. So I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a little bit of weakness, but who knows? It's a complete unknown event on Wednesday. I do know that Fed fund futures are pricing a 99% chance, at least that's what it was earlier, that they're going to cut on Wednesday. So I've seen this question be floated or around, and somebody asked me about this in particular on Twitter. A couple of people asked me about this too, in other places too. And they said, well, what happens if they don't cut interest rates on Wednesday? Well, what do you think's going to happen? It should not be a surprise. If they don't cut interest rates on Wednesday, the market's going to sell off, right? Because the market is fully pricing it in. Now, you got to remember, does the Fed want to shock the world with this stuff? No, they don't. They really try to telegraph what they're doing because they don't want to do that. They don't want to shock everybody. So it's not so much of an unknown. And when the market is anticipating something, hence remember the last meeting where they cut interest rates and they kind of set the record straight in terms of, they said that there was no guarantee that they were going to cut interest rates in December, and the market sold off after that, sold off for like 3 weeks after that. Now they did come out and they like to throw either Powell out there or one of the other Fed speakers, and they did that. They put out Williams and basically said that they think that they can cut interest rates in December. Hence that move up to the 99%. I am more so. That said, I don't think that they're going to shock the world. I think that they're going to cut interest rates. That's what's already priced into the market, and you have to think about that, right? It's when they cut interest rates. There's some people who are not following the game, and that's fine. You have to learn. But when they cut interest rates, the market's not going to rally on that because it's already priced into the market. Hence, the Fed fund futures, I'll say that again, are implying a 99% chance. Now, if the Fed fund futures were only implying a 50% chance and they cut interest rates, yeah, then the market could rally on that. But being that it's, I'll say it again, already priced in, do not expect the market to rally when they cut interest rates. Right? It all depends on what the expectations are. And I'm looking again, it's 99%. Now, so if that's not going to move the market, what will move the market on Wednesday? What will move the market on Wednesday is what they say about in the press conference, right? And that starts at 2:30. And it usually goes for about 45 to 55 minutes because there's a whole lot of Q&A in there. And that's where you're going to find out information about whether they're dovish or whether they're hawkish about future rates. And I'm going to, I will give you this view so that you could see this. So again, here's the, I'll blow this up a little bit so that you could see. I'll also, yeah, there we go. So 99% chance. And then for the next meeting, and that's all the way at the end of January, it's only a 26%. So I like that. I like that the market is not pricing in a high odds of another rate coming January. So if they act dovish, right, then about future rate cuts, then the market should rally on that. Do you see, right? It's all about probabilities in this market and about what the market is pricing in versus what it's not, right? So we'll zoom this in a little bit more so that I hope you could see that. I know it's right? In any event, I will go back to the spreadsheet. So again, I think really that's going to be the main thing, the main driver of equity prices going forward. I will say this, even though the market was down today and really didn't do much for the majority of the, says, well, look at the microcaps. Were they up 1.3% today? IWM was really didn't hardly even moved all day long, was flat and outperformed for the session, even though bond prices continue to drift lower and yields go higher. The TLT is now down 2.6% in December. And again, that's different than what the Fed controls. And again, this is another area of confusion, and that's why I do these end of day videos, because folks get confused about this. They're like, "Oh, I don't understand. How come TLT is not rallying?" Well, because that's completely different bonds, right? Those are long. That's the long end of the curve. Completely different maturity than what the Fed controls. What does the Fed control? They control the overnight rate, super short term, right? They have nothing to do with any of the other bonds unless they're specifically saying that they're buying bonds in some type of quantitative easing program, but they're not. So all the other bond maturities are governed by what? Supply and demand. Supply and demand. Meanwhile, that's not what short-term rates are dictated by. They're dictated by what the Fed does. So, right, so they anchor that. All right, so that's been very interesting, and I think that's also been weighing a little bit on what equity prices are doing. You could see more areas down today. Really, I listen. I have no problem saying when I'm wrong or right about something, but I was very bullish on what commodities were doing last week. Today, and it's okay to admit this, right? The folks that don't admit this, they're really insecure and they don't talk about it. It is what it is. We're traders. We're going to get some things right. We're going to get some things wrong. But crude was down 2% today. Nat gas, which I was kind of jumping up and down about the move in nat gas over the last couple of weeks, was down 8% this week. So luckily in some of my trading, because I was overweight energy, but I had taken a couple, I think I hit 3 targets in Terra Resources. I hit 2 targets in SLB. I think I hit 3 targets in Fang. So, I unwound all those trades in the beginning of the day for the most part. And I unwound the one that I did not get a target in and took that off for a loss, which was EQT. Right? It is what it is. You don't know what these things are going to do on a day-to-day basis. Hence, they call nat gas the widowmaker because it can really move. And down 8% is a big move. So you could see on the bottom of the screen here, a lot of those things, a lot of the commodity type plays were down pretty decently today. Metals and mining were down 1.5%. What did gold do today? Gold was just down 0.25%. Silver miners were down 1.8%. Gold miners were down 2.3%. So those things led to the downside. XOP was down 1.9%. And to the upside, I thought what was particularly was a bright spot today was the semis. So I'm going to review a couple of those charts with you. And I tell you what's interesting about what I think is interesting about the semis. I just wanted to show this price action for the day, and I was talking about how that there was some sellers present. Notice what we did all day today. Now we did move up on this headline about about the U.S. saying that China can buy these old AI chips, and then we gave it right back. Why did we give it right back? Well, number one, I do think that there was a seller present throughout the day. Number two, it doesn't sound like China wants those chips, right? Would you want chips from like a year ago that are not the most advanced chips? They've been designing their own chips. So I don't think it's such a big thing for NVIDIA. Maybe they buy some, maybe they don't, but these are old chips. These are not the newer chips. Now, it could create some revenue for NVIDIA, being that they're going to sell some of these, and hence they kind of hung on to gains, and they're still staying around this 180, 185 level. Very sideways looking chart to me. But what is doing particularly well is, things like analog devices, which has been on a tear. Right? Applied Materials, AMAT, has been doing very well. Another one that I traded last week, it was on the watch list to get back involved in today, but new closing high for Tower Semiconductor. Teradyne right? So very interesting. It hasn't been like the biggest names, the names that all retail really likes to follow: NVIDIA, AMD, maybe Intel too. It's been more some of these smaller names. I did get long some CRDO today. CRDO, which I thought had a great earnings, a great earnings quarter, great earnings call, but it sold off on earnings, probably because it's too overcrowded. And another name that retail is probably over. Uh, has too much of a position on, right? Too much of a crowded long is what I'm trying to say. So I like it into support. It kind of came into this 169 level, right? You can see that's the top of the value area for the month, and it held it. So now I know exactly where to put my stop, right? Just about, again, the best traders out there, right? They're only going to be a little bit more than 50% correct, right? That means about 45, 50, almost 50% they're going to be wrong, right? So you got to know where your stops are so that the ones that you're wrong on are not going to outweigh the ones that you're right on, right? That's the whole name of the game. You got to have small losers and big winners. So 160, right around 166 is where my stop is. And let's see if this will gear back up. I really like this ALAB. I don't know why it was up today, but I like this turning the corner, right? This has made a series of lower highs. Here was the high back in September. Lower high, lower high, lower high. Eh, maybe turning the corner, maybe getting out of that pattern of lower highs. Right, so that's one that I find that I think is particularly interesting. There was another one too that I was watching. I think that was TSEM. Here's my watch list for the week. Right, here's what this looks like. Optical names. Now we are going to get Sienna is going to report this week, but CLS had a pretty so even though the market was down today, I had a lot of nice triggers that went off here with Unity Software. Did not take that trade, but was up what 7% today. They did get, I think, another positive note. There's TSEM, Western Digital also fired off, so we could go over a couple more of these charts really quickly. Here's CLS. This name was quiet last week, and so watch that 344.64 level. That's CRS. VRT had an inside day. I like this chart, and I'm long a little bit of this. I got long because I thought it might be added to the. Here we go. Trump told Xi will allow NVIDIA exports. So there you go. That just hit the tape. Oh, there you go. So that's a red headline on Bloomberg that you're getting right this second. That's what she said. All right. Sorry, I'm just putting this on. Out on social media. So there's VRT. A couple other names too. I saw a little bit of a call buyer in this NBIS. We'll see if that turns the corner. No, I have no position in this one. Some of these look pretty decent. The miners, APLD, CIFR. Not a big move today. Just kind of held in there. I was going to bring up the memory chip names too. Micron popped out to not to new highs, but to the top of the value area. Watch that 246.30 level. Western Digital was a name on the watch list because I liked how it broke above the December value area and kind of tacked on some gains. So these names continue to be very strong. Guys, I'll leave it there. Have a great night. Again, one of the things I thought was pretty good today, even though, like I said, I thought that there was sellers present in the market. Just how well some of these little semiconductors names did today. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.